With Elder Scrolls 6 taking so long to release, it's safe to assume that expectations are going to be high. In this video, I thought I'd go over some of my own personal expectations and wishes for my favourite element regarding Elder Scrolls games. Yep, we're talking about the world of Elder Scrolls today. How can they make it feel more immersive and beautiful, whilst keeping it interesting for the player to explore? How they can build on prior foundations laid before them, and also expand in new innovative ways. I think it'll be pretty fun to talk about the world of Elder Scrolls 6 and what we want from it, so let's waste no time and get into my personal requests. My first request is probably a given, but I want to get it out there anyway. The wildlife in Skyrim was so beautiful and immersive. You couldn't walk down one path without a wolf passing you by, seeing a rabbit or a fox, or maybe even a couple butterflies. Is it a mammoth? Is it a giant? Is it a cow? My point is, everywhere you went there was different, weird and wonderful wildlife animals, and I loved it. It brought the world together and it made it feel so alive. I think for me, this is probably the biggest difference I noticed between Skyrim and other Elder Scrolls games. They do a great job of making beautiful worlds, but I think Skyrim feels truly immersive because of how much wildlife you come across. I mean, everyone knows the age-old story of you trying to assassinate a deer with an arrow, it spots you just a bit too early and you're chasing it across half the map. That's the type of stuff you can't get in games that don't have great wildlife, and it's what makes Skyrim so special to me. So I think going into Elder Scrolls 6, I would just love to see this expanded on. Give me more animals, give me more scenarios I can run into wildlife. I think honestly, having wildlife just randomly roaming, it kind of brings the world together and as I say, keeps it feeling alive, like it's a living, breathing world. Plus, they could always do things like give you better rewards for hunting. I always thought archery was a great skill that could have really used some more rewards when it comes to hunting animals. It's a shame they didn't do it in Skyrim, but maybe they'll do it in Elder Scrolls 6. My next one might be a bit of a hot take, but hear me out. I want them to add more themes to the worlds. I love Skyrim as much as the next man, but a lot of Skyrim does look the same. It's either snowy or it's like plains. And don't get me wrong, these landscapes are absolutely beautiful. I love all my time spent in Skyrim, but I will admit a lot of the map can feel pretty samey at times. So in Elder Scrolls 6, I think the best way to curb that is to just have a ton more variety. I think we should have more swamp biomes. I think we could have stuff like dead forests where, I don't know, there's a forest with no leaves or something. But I don't just want different varied districts on a map. I would love for different themes and atmospheres. It'd be cool if you went to the top right of the map and it was a lot more horror themed. For example, there's a lot more mist, the soundtrack kind of changes when you're there and the enemies are typically more scary. You find a lot of abandoned buildings and stuff. I don't know, maybe I'm being a bit too optimistic there, but I think that'd be a cool way to keep the map feeling fresh no matter where you are. On the flip side, you could have the center of the map be this big bustling city where you can go and talk to people. I think that would offset, for example, the creepier biomes you could have, or the more abandoned biomes you can have. Or again, if you want heavier weathers, sure, add some snow, make it more snowy there. Give us icy biomes, give us really dry biomes. I think just having a wider variety would be great, but I also want to see some different atmospheres too. To kind of clarify, Skyrim always has a very relaxed approach until you're attacked. No matter where you are in Skyrim, it's almost comforting. I would love for Elder Scrolls 6 to kind of mix that up in some biomes. I would love to be walking around a biome in Elder Scrolls 6 and go, yeah, I don't feel comforted right now, there's something about to jump out on me, this place is kind of scary. And it doesn't have to go full horror, of course, but I think that would really shake up the gameplay a bit. Speaking of shaking up the gameplay, one thing I need them to add in Elder Scrolls 6 is more random encounters, man. I love them in Skyrim. You genuinely cannot beat walking through Skyrim and you see a random hunter come up to you and go, hey, hold on to this, I'll be back for it in 5 minutes, double cross me and I'll kill you. Then 2 minutes later, another guy comes and goes, hey, have you seen anyone run this way? He just stole this gear that you just acquired. And although that is a very stupid one, I love it. Or maybe you come across Cicero, who is unbelievably annoying, as always, and it kind of foreshadows the Dark Brotherhood. Or for example, you could get assassinated by the Dark Brotherhood, again teasing you more towards that questline. Stuff like that I absolutely love, and I think again it brings the world together, it makes me want to explore more to see what you can come across, and I think it would just be awesome to have more random encounters in the game. I'm sure they will, but here's hoping. I feel like one of the biggest complaints regarding Skyrim was that a lot of the dungeons did not feel anywhere near varied enough, and I have to agree. Now, I love me some cave crawling in Skyrim, you cannot beat it, but a lot of the time it can look pretty samey. Sadly, that is one of Skyrim's faults. Unfortunately, dungeon crawls can feel pretty samey, so I hope in Elder Scrolls 6 they can give us new and varied dungeons, some with different themes. Think of it like this, you've got like the Dwemer ruins and then normal caves. If we had a ton of different mini faction style ruins, that would be great, which brings me on to my next point. When you're in the open world, you come across all these forts and they all sadly look the same, no matter who owns them. Whether it's a Stormcloak owned fort, whether it's owned by the Legion, whether it's owned by bandits or the Thalmor, They look basically identical, and I hated this. In the next game, I want the forts to be really distinct. I want to know who owns it before I even storm that fort. I want to see flags raised high. I want to see different building types. Imagine if a Thalmor fort was built out of elven material. That would be so cool. Or maybe a Stormcloak fort would be built out of, I don't know, bear heads or something. I'm not saying Stormcloaks will be in Elder Scrolls 6, but it's a cool thought. And for me, I think that if they were to mix up the dungeon style alongside mixing up some of the fort style, it would breathe so much life into the atmosphere of the world. Oh my god. Imagine just coming up to a random building and you're like, oh god, this is owned by the Thalmor, I can tell by the architecture, and having to find your way to fight the Thalmor in it. Again, I'm not saying any of these factions will be in the game, but if there are factions in the game like that, they should definitely have mixed varieties when it comes to forts and camps. I would also like to see a less repetitive use of enemies. I can't tell you how many times I come across yet another giant, or yet another skeleton. Do you know Draugrs? Yes, we all know Draugrs because that's all you fight in Skyrim. I think unique one-off enemies are great, and that's why they're so memorable when you come across them in Skyrim. For me, I think that if we had so many different just one-off enemies, the world would feel so much more interesting. It'd be like, oh, if I go into this cave, am I going to find a random unique enemy? I don't think this is necessarily something any Elder Scrolls game has particularly struggled with, but it's something they can definitely improve upon now that hardware is getting better. The bottom line is, I think they would have more space, more memory, whatever they need when it comes to technical side to give us more unique enemies. We don't need to be fighting repeats. So yeah, I'd definitely love to see more unique one-off enemies around the world, and I think it'd bring it together. Let's get this next one out of the way, because I've got a feeling that people are going to want me to say it, and I don't really have too much to say on it. Graphics. I want the game to look pretty, of course, as we all do. I know Starfield got a lot of flack when it came to the facial animations and stuff, but the one thing I will give them credit for is the landscapes looked beautiful. And maybe you won't agree, maybe you think they look dated and terrible, and a lot of them do look pretty empty for the most part, but I think no matter what, when I'm running around in Starfield, I've got to say, man, the worlds look nice. There's not much on them, but they look nice. And that for me bodes pretty well, because I just envision an Elder Scrolls world made in similar styles, and I think it would just look so damn good. Again, I know Starfield's a bit of a hot topic, but I do think some of their worlds look fantastic. I would love to see a bigger variety of weather types. I have to say, in Skyrim, it's pretty much either raining, sunny, or snowy. And to be fair, that's kind of most of the weather in the world, I understand that, but I think if we had some more outrageous fantasy-style weather types, it could be awesome. Imagine if for 2 days in-game, the sky went completely red, and there was a red mist covering the map, and I don't know, maybe there were sandstorms and stuff. I know that this might sound pretty lame, but guess what? I'm not in the Bethesda creative department. I've got no idea. I'm just spitballing ideas here. But what I do think is adding new dynamic weathers could be really cool. It could really switch up the gameplay and make familiar locations feel fresh and new. I would love to see a lot more interactivity too. Stuff like shrines and standing stones are great. You go up to them, you get a little buff, and you go on your way. It kind of gave me a reason to explore all the random structures and things you can see in the map. You didn't want to walk past a random rock just in case that random rock meant something. I think having things that the player might check out just in case there's a little buff or just in case there's a random weapon they want will be ultimately very beneficial for taking in the environment and giving reasons for the player to continue exploring. The final thing I'm going to say might be the biggest hot take I'm going to give you in this video, and I want you to just bear with me and let me explain myself first. I would love for a settlement style system to be in an Elder Scrolls game. I know, okay, calm down. We saw success with stuff like the Half-Fire DLC, I believe that's the one that gave us like the house building and families and stuff, and it was a smash hit. Everyone loved that DLC. Now, one thing I really liked from Starfield and Fallout 4 was having settlements. It was only a small enclosed location, but it gave you a lot more customization when it came to building your own environment, setting people certain jobs, and kind of making your own currency in a little settlement. I thought it was really cool. And I think stuff like that would actually be great for the world too. Imagine you find a nice location in Elder Scrolls 6 that you like. I'm sure the map's going to be massive, and you go, you know what? I'm making a settlement here. You place down a couple merchant stands, you build your own little mini city. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you got your own little town and community going along. You get a few of your favourite companions, bring them over too, man. It would be beautiful. Unfortunately, I don't think that one will be listened to, and maybe that's for the best. Maybe people watching this will go, oh my god, AJ, damn, no, do not do that idea. But for me, I can't think of a better way for me to be spending my Elder Scrolls time. Imagine that, man. You get a family, you got a wife, you got a couple kids, and you go, hey, come live in my town. You build yourself some shacks and some stalls, and all of a sudden, you don't need to keep visiting those big cities because you've got everything you need right at home. To me, at least, I think that sounds damn awesome, and I would love to see that in Elder Scrolls. Do I think it will happen? Honestly, no. But hey, I'm gonna sit here praying, man, because I would love it. Anyways, that will do it for this short video. Let me know down below, what do you want them to add to the world of Elder Scrolls 6? I know I kind of, to a certain degree, trailed into more gameplay elements here, but they all add into the world, they add into changing the environment, and giving the player reasons to explore those environments too. Definitely drop down below what you think would be a great addition. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my additions, and I'll see you in the next video, guys. Take care.